The Tanya is basically an answer to one question. And that question is,
how do we serve Hashem?
How to be a better Jew?
no, there's a question.
Oh, why are we down here?
What's our purpose?
The technical question, I mean, that's all true. But the technical question that the Tanya is based on is, how can the Torah say, Ki korev elecha hadavar ma'od, when in our experience we see that it's not true? Korev elecha hadavar ma'od means it is very natural for you to love Hashem. Is it?
No.
So that's the question that it's supposed to be. So that's the question that the Alter Rebbe bases the whole Tanya on. How can Torah say that it's very natural when it's very not natural? Because naturally we love ourselves, not the Eibishter. When a child is born, he loves the Eibishter. He loves himself. He wants what he wants. He won't take no for an answer. Doesn't care about anybody else. That's our nature. Now you can imagine, to very, very frum people, when the Alter Rebbe came along and said, what do you mean it's close? It's not. Can you imagine how frum people reacted to that? The Torah says it is, so it is. How dare you ask such a question? So it seemed like this was not an appropriate question for a frum Jew. Torah says it's natural, so it's natural. And that's part of the reason that the very frum people of that generation were suspicious of Hasidus. What is the truth? The truth is, if you really believe in Torah, then you ask that question. Why wouldn't you ask the question?
Because you think it's supposed to be easy. You think you're supposed to love Hashem naturally.
So you try, right? So you
have Kabbalah's own.
Yeah, Kabbalah Sel means you do what you have to do. Kabbalah Sel doesn't answer a question.
Don't ask questions, just do it.
See, when you say don't ask questions, just do it, it almost sounds like, if you ask too many questions, you're going to find out that it's not true. So don't ask questions. If the Torah says it's good, leave it alone. Leave it alone. If you really believe that the Torah is true, then you're not afraid to ask a question. Because in the end the Torah is going to be right. So you can say, it's natural? I don't see that it's natural. So where is this going to lead you? To doubting the whole Torah? Of course not. Torah is true. But if you're not sure that the Torah is true, then you don't ask questions. It's almost like you're protecting the Torah. Because the Torah needs to be protected because, it could turn out to be false. Right? So when the Alter Rebbe asked the question, it was certainly not because he doubted it. On the contrary, if everything the Torah says is true, and it is, then how come I don't feel it? It's true, so I should feel it, not accept it b'Kabbalah Sel. Make sense? Torah can tell you that in heaven something goes on that you'll never know about, and you just have to accept it b'Kabbalah Sel. But if Torah tells you something about you, it's natural for you to love Hashem. How can you accept that with Kabbalah Sel? You know you. So if it's true, you should feel it. And if you don't feel it, something's got to be explained over here. Because it is true, not because it might not be true. Make sense? So again, what does it mean? Ki karev elecha hadavar ma'ed beficha ubelvavcha. It is very close, which means natural, and therefore easy to accomplish. To serve the Eibishter, to serve God with your heart. What does the heart mean? Love, fear, and compassion. That's the heart. You love God, you fear God, and you have compassion for God. Loving God means you love Him. He gave you life, He takes care of you, you love Him. Fearing God means it's His world, He's the boss, so you do it His way. What does compassion mean? How do you have pity on God? Since our neshama, particularly the fifth part of the neshama that's called Yechida, since that's a little piece of God, if the Yechida is in trouble, then God is in trouble. And since He gave you the neshama, you can do whatever you want. So if you don't do the right thing, it's a rachmanis on God. Because He's suffering for it. So it's correct to have rachmanis on God. So sometimes you do mitzvahs because you love Hashem, sometimes you do mitzvahs because you fear Hashem, and sometimes you do mitzvahs simply out of rachmanis. You can't be so cruel to your neshama, because the neshama is a little piece of God. So when you do an Aveda, you're basically making your neshama miserable. And you don't want to do that. So it's rachmanis. So how is it that it is natural for you to either love God or fear God or have pity for God? It doesn't seem to be natural because by nature you don't even know there's a God. So how can you say it's natural to feel any feelings? So first you have to get to know Him. That takes a long time, even with Chassidus. Certainly without Chassidus, how do you get to know Him? If you don't know Him, how can you love Him? How can you fear Him? How can you have any feelings for someone you don't know? So in order to have feelings, you have to get to know Him. Get to know Him, that's not easy. That's certainly not natural. So that's the Alter Rebbe's question.